Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this video, I thought I would give an update to the rule changes to Magic Tower Conquest as opposed to the first time it ran. So first of all, on stream I went 10-1, then I went to 10-4, and now I'm at 15-8. So off stream I did 5 more wins and 4 more losses, in large part because I was experimenting with various things to figure stuff out. And these are the things that I have found. First of all, well worth mentioning is that the Mercenaries are generally quite terrible compared to heroes that you have fully built up. What I mean by that is, of particular note, the Mercenaries will have no gear, they only have the choice of 2 of the potential skills of the hero, and their soldiers are much worse than your own heroes. For example, we see here that Landius has 20% boost to everything, right? By comparison, if I look at my own personal Landius, I see 20, 35, 35, 10. So there's a huge difference in the soldier boost, and in addition, the soldier itself is not fully leveled up either. Right? We see here it's 653, 653, 350, 254. By comparison, on my soldiers, right, there's less hit points, much more attack, more defense, and I guess less magic defense. Or actually, I'm not even sure if it's less magic defense. No, more magic defense. So basically, the soldiers are not fully leveled up. If your training ground is fully leveled, then you're going to have much better soldiers than the ones that are offered in the Mercenaries. So there's just... And last but not least, because these Mercenaries have no gear, you don't get any kind of additional benefits, like for example, my Licorice has access to clocks and may provide tenuous headdress buffs to allies and so on and so forth. Right? And I can always change soldiers. So there's lots of advantages to using your own heroes whenever possible. There are a few soldiers that are usable, and I think they are pretty much the following. The ones that I'm using right now, in fact. Emilia and Shalinka are both usable primarily because they're decent characters who can revive. I personally have a box where I actually don't have any character that's capable of reviving for Magic Tower Conquest. The only character I have that may revive is probably Vargas, and that's it. Right? And I don't really have a gear set for my Vargas at this point, so that's why I'm not using him. But generally speaking, revival characters are quite useful, so that's why I wanted to mention that Shalinka and Emilia are quite usable as a result. They're not perfect. For example, this Shalinka is running infantry soldiers, so she is super vulnerable to cavalry enemies, for example. And of course, Emilia, in her case, she is basically stuck using Divine Sanctuary. You could bring Justice if you want to melee attack right away, but the big limitation on this Emilia is, of course, she only has access to the Zealot soldiers, which once again are not perfectly built up. As for Cherie, well, the whole point of Cherie is that with Raging Storm, she kills off one enemy and then gets to act again. So this is not a perfect Cherie, as usual, right? The soldiers aren't the greatest, and you can see here that the bonus is only 18% attack and defense increase, as opposed to the theoretical Cherie of, let's say, where is it? 30% stat buff to both, and that's why, in a lot of ways, using your own Cherie may be a better option. My Cherie, in my case, is 4 stars. The main reason I haven't chosen to use it is because it's 502 attack plus 415 attack. By comparison, the one that's offered as a mercenary has more attack, I believe. Right, 1026. So it's a bit over. It's like 100 attack over me, but the soldiers are much worse. So ultimately, which one you choose is kind of up to you. Yeah, I'm currently using the Mercenary Cherie, but my own one is actually very, very viable too. But once again, far less attack. Alright, so that is the Mercenaries in a nutshell. Most of the other ones are, in my opinion, totally unusable. I actually tried using AoE attackers from it, like Maya and so on. What I found was, generally speaking, their int is just a bit too low for the AoEs to do very much damage. Right? For example, Maya has 901 int, And then Rainforce, which I also use, has 901 attack, right? So the attack values are not the greatest, and thus it's quite difficult to use these mercenary AoEs. Enemy deploys Yusuke. I'm going to deploy Rainforce with Lunar Flare to just AoE smack them. And I think I don't know if that's the best choice, but let's get some damage into the enemy Yusuke, which helped you survive. So what we saw there was that Rainforce couldn't even do 2300 damage to Yusuke to finish him off after taking the Voyager Strike and the Illustral counterattack, which just shows that Rainforce is really doing very little damage. Finally, here is a tier list created by Desulife showing what he thinks is the best heroes to use in Magic Tower Conquest. Mostly accurate, I would say. There are some debatable factors in this, but it gives you a good guideline for a good box overall. So what's worth noting is, for example, what I found kind of odd is Emilia got put in all the way down in B rank, which is very low, while Vargas was placed all the way at S rank, which is really high. Given that they basically serve similar functions, it makes no sense for one to be B rank and one to be S rank. Another oddity that could be in here is Arianrod is almost ranked a bit too high. I mean, don't get me wrong, Arianrod is good, but she is probably not an SS rating, unless you're bringing rescue, right? Because what usually happens with Arianrod is she will use her AoE skill, Grand Cross, the first turn, and then the second turn she'll attack a target, get to act again, attack, and then kill herself. So unless you have rescue that provides healing before combat, she's not really SS rank. So it's kind of like that option is very much based on the technical skills that you brought. So stuff like that. There are some oddities mixed in, but it gives a good framework overall for how you would put together your box for Magic Tower Conquest. Now let's go over some of the rule changes. And one of the big rule changes is that summons only do 1 damage to towers instead of 3. So summons are no longer as good as they used to be, although 1 damage can always help, it's nowhere near as good. So of particular note, that means Liana bringing Summon Sky Archer is nowhere near as good as she used to be. Same with Gizarov and his constructs, although in the case of Gizarov and his constructs, since when he dies he also summons a construct, Gizarov can still be used quite effectively. And of course, the fact that his constructs can get buffs like doing an AoE area of effect damage can be a big difference. Here, a construct that was spawned after Gizarov dies attacks Rachel, got a buff deterring component that does AoE damage and damages the enemy tower. Another rule change is that now attacking towers prevents act again effects. What this means is that characters like Claret, for example, no longer attack a tower twice. Anyone who attacks a tower cannot act again. That's basically it. So Claret is no longer very good against towers because she can't double strike and kill a tower. And anyone else who has act again, such as Brenda or such as Shaltir, will not hit a tower twice. The third rule change is that now, towers when they die will apply a 1-turn stun debuff on all characters, enemies, within 2 blocks of them. So for example, of particular note, characters that have not acted this turn and are within 2 blocks of the tower will remove that stun at the end of their turn, and characters who have acted, such as the attacker, will be stunned for the next turn. So this is a big change because it makes it quite easy to counterattack against those attackers potentially. The fourth rule change is that when a tower dies, you can now spawn your allied units against the wall. So there are some new tiles for spawning your characters to protect against further pushes. Previously, you could only spawn your characters next to your own tower. So this new spawn location just helps a little bit. And finally, the last change is to tactical skills. And the tactical skills have changed quite a lot. There's now 10 of them in total. You can see 3, 3, 3, and then 1. However, of these 10, most of them are still not usable. I personally feel there's really just 6 that are used. The most common two continue to be the Voyager and the Curse skill. Voyager lets you do 30% damage to one enemy right away, and this 30% damage can weaken an enemy for you to easily kill off the target. Curse, of course, will apply a cannot be healed debuff on the enemies, and then at the end of their action, they get a 40% max hit point loss. So both Curse of particular note is great against characters such as Yulia. The third skill is usually much more contested, and there's, in my opinion, 4 skills that can fit into this 4th slot. Okay. Let's go over them one by one. The first one that can be used is Eliminate. Eliminate can grant one friendly unit 80% increased AoE damage, and it only lasts 1 turn. So what this is great for is it can make your AoE more powerful and potentially powerful enough to wipe out multiple targets all at once. Keep in mind that generally speaking, a single character's AoE doing 180% damage is not enough to one-shot enemies, but if your enemies that you're facing have already been weakened, this AoE can let you easily finish them off. The second one that is very, very common is Rescue. And Rescue is one of the skills that have changed. Okay. Rescue used to be a healing skill that was a single target one. It is now an AoE skill with a span of 3 blocks. So all the characters within the span of 3 blocks will get a shield effect that lasts 2 turns, and before entering battle, it restores 30% of their hit points. In addition, if they haven't even gotten into combat as well, they'll also restore 30% hit points. So it's like a healing before battle as well as a guaranteed heal for your damaged characters, even if they don't attack anyone, which makes it really, really good because it lasts 2 turns. The next one that I've seen a lot of, and which I used quite successfully, is Swamp. Okay. Swamp is similar to Rescue. It got improved. Swamp is now a terrain effect with a span of 1 ring. So it's like a 3x3 tile effect. And it will affect characters who you cast it on right away. And basically, all the characters within that 1 ring area will have their mobility reduced by 2. And that debuff will last for 1 turn. So it's a great spell because just reducing enemy mobility can prevent tanks from guarding, and any 3 mobility characters, like let's say Yulia for example, will get their mobility reduced to 1, which makes it very difficult for them to actually even attack enemies. And the last skill that I have seen people use is Slaughter. Okay. Slaughter will make it so that your character, as long as they deal damage, they will deal an additional 0.2 times physical damage to enemies within 2 blocks of them. And it lasts 2 turns. So this AoE damage is great for weakening towers, for example, and getting some extra damage into the enemy targets that you're hitting. Slaughter is much more oriented towards, let's say, using Ares in particular, because if you have an opportunity to have Ares charge the enemy's central tower, and he uses Slaughter, he can get, let's say, the 3 damage from the attack, 1 damage from using Fearless Hurricane, 1 damage from Slaughter, which adds up to 5 damage in total. Right after that, you've got 2 more Voyager uses to guarantee the kill on the enemy main tower, winning you the match right there. So it's in some ways, it's kind of a high risk, high reward kind of skill. Very limited opportunities to use it, but when you do make use of it, it can be very game winning. It can also weaken side towers, for example. We saw Slaughter get used against me in 2 victories. I'll have to link to those 2 battles in the video description below. And that covers really what I feel would be the 6 most common skills that are used for Magic Tower Conquest. The remaining skills I don't feel are very useful. Okay? Rewind can reduce your skill mobility by 5 turns, basically refreshing a character's ability to use a skill. From what I've seen, it's far less game-winning than the other options that I just previously mentioned. It can be great, don't get me wrong, like refreshing your skill so you can launch up more AoEs or have Yulia use Godly Menace can be great. But very rarely will this win you matches. That's what I've personally noticed. So I generally recommend the other skills that I previously mentioned. Supreme is another very rare used skill. What Supreme basically does is it guarantees that your character can one-shot the enemy character that you're attacking, because it reduces their defense and magic defense by 60%. The thing is though, you should never really be deploying single target strikers unless you're certain you can one-shot the enemy. So having to bring Supreme to do that is kind of a complete waste. The next one that I've never really seen people use is Savage Attack. And actually, Savage Attack is probably one of the worst ones possible, because what it does is after combat, you will have a 50% chance to render the target unable to take action for 1 turn. Totally useless in my opinion, because first of all, you're saying that the target you attack will survive, right? Instead of one-shotting them. And second, you only have a 50% chance of stunning them anyways. So it's really like a complete mess. I don't understand why they implemented it this way. Can't recommend this skill at all. It has no real benefit compared to the other skills. And finally, the last one that doesn't really see use is Blink. Theoretically, Blink can be great because you can teleport a character forward, right? You teleport one of your characters and then you teleport them forward and then they can attack or whatever. The problem is that after you teleport them forward, after your character acts, they lose 50% of their max hit points. So it's almost like a suicidal teleport forward skill, which once again can't really be recommended. I'm sure theoretically there might be situations where this could be game winning. Maybe if you, let's say, teleport your character very close to the enemy tower out of range of all their attackers or something, so that your character attacks the enemy tower and does 3 damage to it or something. But like I said, if you're attacking a tower, you're losing 50% hit points, then this Blink skill loses you 50% hit points and your character dies right away. So I saw it used once, Blink, that was it. And it didn't make me go wow or anything like that. So overall, once again, I feel the previously mentioned 6 skills are the far better ones. And I think that pretty much concludes what I want to talk about. So the last thing I will mention is, my box of 24. Well worth mentioning is, in my experiments, for example, I was bringing Eliminate. What I realized is that Eliminate could be potentially amazing for people whose boxes are almost purely AoE attackers. In my case, I have a few too many single target strikers to make Eliminate really good. So I'm personally just going back to bringing Swamp. It's just safer for me. And so my current skill set is Voyager, Curse, and Swamp. I would love to fit in Rescue somehow, something that I'm considering, but not sure how that would fit in, frankly. There does seem to be kind of a bit of a rock, paper, scissors scenario to this, where, for example, using Eliminate to AoE kill characters would nullify Rescue, more or less. Using Supreme would guarantee you a kill on someone who has the Rescue buff on them. But keep in mind, once again, Rescue is an AoE skill. So there's various considerations to take into account in that kind of stuff. In any case though, since I don't have an AoE box, it makes it very difficult to use the Eliminate skill overall, and thus Swamp is the better option for me. Like for example, if I had, let's say, Joshua built and Rene built as well, right? Then I could fit them in and remove characters like Sonya and so on, having more AoE attackers, and thus Eliminate would be wonderful. As it is, I don't have that, so Eliminate is not optimized for my box. And I'm currently running a box with, I guess, a mix of AoE attackers from my Apex team and some single target strikers like Yulia, Elwyn, Shalinka as the Mercenary, Cherie, Sonya is here simply because I don't actually have anyone else to fit in to replace her, stuff like that. But it's also worth noting, the final thing I should mention is that the more Gift of Eternal Life you have, the better your box. This mode really likes combat healers. Okay? Characters who can attack the enemy and also heal up your characters at the same time. So characters like Rachel are great. Characters like Yulia, who also applies a self-healing effect, is amazing. Characters like Elwyn, who self-heal after combat, is also really strong. But also characters like Chris, Geralt and Layla, and even Almeda are very good here. Especially if they have Gift of Eternal Life. That has to be mentioned, right? If, let's say, Almeda has Gift of Eternal Life, and she's bringing Holy Word, for example, she'll attack, Holy Word will provide a heal, Gift of Eternal Life will provide a heal, and her talent will provide a heal, for 3 separate heals. Chris, similarly, if she attacks with a skill, she would provide healing via discipline or her attack skill. She would provide healing via Gift of Eternal Life. You know, so healers, if they can attack, would have a role, and it's also they're also very good because characters like Almeda, for example, do have AoE skills too, right? Almeda has Ultimate Quip and Tornado. I think she has her 3C, which is another AoE skill. Chloe has an AoE skill in wow, I can't even find my Chloe right now. But yes, Chloe has both the option of Discipline as well as an AoE skill. There she is. And she also has, of course, Aurora Ring. But the AoE skill is the Starglow. And Chris is the one that doesn't have an AoE skill, but her 3C, if I recall properly, is like a very powerful single target strike skill as well. So she has access to multiple single target strikes, right? Discipline is a self-heal. Redemption is an ally heal. Right? And yeah, her 3C is a high damage and I think also heal spell of some kind. But once again, those kind of characters, those combat healers, are generally limited to whether you have Gift of Eternal Lives for them. I personally only have 2, so my 2 are basically limited to, let's say, characters like Yulia, Hobo, you know, Deedlit, and so on and so forth. So that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you found this information useful to you. And on that note, Nitro out.